let's dive into the topic here. I'll also put a tweet out earlier if you guys have probably already seen it. We already got the article updated here in Patreon. Mutual interest is the title here. Jim Leonard, the Green Bay rumors continue to heat up. Now, you guys remember the other day as we walked through the whole process, Ed Werder 6-7 days ago mentioned that, right? And then it's like, okay, is that a rumor? What is that? And then other reports started to come out. Wildy talked about it. Then Rob Demovsky talked about it. We'll kind of walk you guys back through this whole process and how everything kind of fell into place. As Coach Lynn says, mutual interest, eye emoji. Here it is. So I put a tweet out, and it came from an article. I'll read the entire paragraph in the article that Ian Rapoport wrote. He tweeted it out about 12 minutes before I created this article here, or right around the time I created this article. I think it said it was 12 minutes old, his was, okay? Ian Rapoport confirms there is mutual interest between Jim Leonard and the Packers. So here is what his paragraph, what he did, guys, is he put an entire article together talking about what these games this weekend means to the teams that are looking to fill their coaching staffs, right? So that's kind of the base of the article. And here's the paragraph he had on the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay lost its defensive coordinator to Miami when the Dolphins hired Jeff Hafley as their next head coach. The Packers have conducted a few interviews already, including with former Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon and Bears assistant Al Harris. There also is mutual interest between the Packers and Wisconsin native and ex-Badgers star Jim Leonard, who currently is Denver's defensive pass game coordinator / assistant head coach. While nothing is set, the hope is both sides can get together for a discussion after Sunday's AFC title game. With Leonard's ties to the state, this one makes sense. Leonard is considered to be one of the top defensive coordinator candidates. Again, through this whole process, no one has reported Jim Leonard had mutual interest, right? Like we've talked about from the get-go here, Ed Werder, and there's the article link too, by the way, in the Patreon group. You can just click on it, go straight to Ian's article there. Ed Werder tweeted out, Packers could be contenders for former Wisconsin DC Jim Leonard if current Green Bay defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley is hired as a head coach. Obviously, that happened. This tweet was on January 17th. He quote tweeted a gentleman by the name of Parker Gabriel and said, perhaps worth noting that the Broncos secondary coach Jim Leonard turned down the Packers DC job under Matt LaFleur in 2021 because he figured at the time he'd be at Wisconsin for the long haul. So then that gets filled. There's some people that seem to think Jim Leonard didn't want to be a Packer. He turned it down and went somewhere else. He left us on red, however you want to say it, right? That's how it was. Some of the fan base was reporting it. In all honesty, he wanted to stay at Wisconsin. Now, we feel that role at defensive coordinator, things change at Wisconsin, right? So he ended up going to Illinois, and then obviously he jumps all the way across the country to Denver. I think it's safe to say he would want to be back in the state of Wisconsin, closer to home. It's my understanding he's still got family in Madison. So with all that being said, that Ed Werder kind of kicked this whole thing off. And then, of course, on Wildy and Tausch, Rob Demovsky said, I don't think anything happens until Matt LaFleur can talk to Jim Leonard, talking about the DC spot being potentially filled. Now, you put those two together along with Jason Wildy all week long saying that he talked to someone in the building that they're very interested in Jim Leonard. It just seemed like it was one-sided, Tim, the whole way. It was like, the Packers want to talk to Jim Leonard. The Packers are interested in Jim Leonard. You had kind of that thing in the background where people were saying he turned us down. He didn't want to come to Green Bay, right? And then when you really filter through all the information, it truly does feel like he wanted to stay at Wisconsin. That sense has changed. This looks like with Ian Rapoport, like I said, in that new article saying that there's mutual interest. This is a signal that, hey, yeah, Jim Leonard might be coming back to Green Bay. So let's go around the horn with it once here. Tim, how do you feel about it? I'm going to get Jacob's take on it as well. Do you think there's any smoke to this fire? Because this is a little bit different report, I feel like.
Absolutely, I do. And that's really the breaking news, right? It wasn't really a secret that the Packers were interested in him as a candidate. And I think even if you try not to speculate and, speak for Jim Leonard or what his intentions are, hey, it's a promotion, right? He would get an opportunity to coordinate the Green Bay Packers defense. That's a huge move. I think anyone would certainly be interested in that. And then, yeah, you factor in, the hometown ties to Wisconsin and him wanting to be here. I could totally see that. There's definitely smoke to this fire. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where back in, I believe was it 2022, where we kind of thought this could be a possibility. At that time, I wasn't quite as sold on it as many people were. But then you'd kind of look back at his tenure. I didn't realize this. I just did a quick, little search here. So forgive me if this is wrong. They say that he grew up in Flambeau, Wisconsin, has ties, which is just, that's just crazy. I didn't realize he was a UDFA. He played multiple seasons, obviously, in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, the Ravens, the Jets, the Broncos, Saints, Buffalo again, Cleveland. I mean, the guy's been through, hell and back as far as the NFL, is concerned. And I think my biggest gripe with him in 2022, I thought, well, he doesn't have a lot of NFL experience. I was an idiot. That was a stupid take, because clearly he's been around multiple different facilities, multiple organizations, seen the college, what it takes, been through the different ringers of what it takes to be different, on different coaching staffs, and what it takes to actually thrive in the NFL. And he's shown that he can do that. And again, to just kind of the people that say, he, like Clayton said, left us on red, turned his nose up to us. I just think that's just false. I know that personally, as a Badger fan, which it's been tough to be a Badger fan for the last, basically ever. It was something that I would have loved to see, is him actually take over the head coaching, position there, like the Luke Fickell thing, or I'm still on the edge of what's going to happen with that. Sounds like we may have some good prospects coming in, but it seems like that he was loyal to that organization. I know he's obviously loyal to the state of Wisconsin. What better fit to bring the guy back home? Let's start. And, it's going to be hard to replace a guy like Jeff Hafley. It really is, just because of the fact that, the mentorship, the teachership that he kind of had as a coach. Sometimes the numbers maybe weren't what we expected. Obviously, the injuries and a lot of other factors go into that, but I would love it. I think that he's starting to edge his way towards the number one pick in my eyes. As if we could get him, I say sign the dotted line, man. Let's do it.
And again, just a quick recap. We had 4 interviews set, right? Christian Parker, Durante Jones, Jonathan Gannon, Al Harris. Christian Parker has since signed a deal with the Dallas Cowboys to be their new defensive coordinator. So the remaining interviewees, whatever you want to say, Durante Jones, Jonathan Gannon, Al Harris, and they're waiting on Jim Leonard to become available here to obviously be interviewed. Caterpillar with the super chat. Appreciate you so much, buddy. He says, quote, just hit it, Tim. I'll wait.
Pay that man his money.
With the money bag and the cheese emoji. Love it, Caterpillar. Thank you so much for the super, pal. So again, you can find that article over there on our Patreon group. I linked it there straight to NFL.com, so you guys will have quick access to it. And again, this thing has kind of evolved, right, as it's gone on. Ed Werder reporting, Jason Wilde reporting, and now, of course, Rob Demovsky reporting on it. Now Ian Rapoport saying there's mutual interest. You guys can go back, check this out in the Patreon group. We just did a complete deep dive into the history of his playing career, his coaching career. The big thing that stood out to me when we dove into all this, walk on at Wisconsin, ended up earning a scholarship, right? Then, of course, so he was overlooked coming out of high school, overachieved in college. He goes to the NFL, undrafted, overlooked, ended up playing 10 plus years in the league, overachieved at the NFL. And then he was overlooked in his college career, or college coaching career as well. He ended up being the interim head coach there in 2022 when the head coach got fired, and he led them to a 4-3 record, which made them bowl eligible. So showed a little clutch ability down the stretch. And of course, is quickly climbing the coaching ranks there in Denver. In 2024, obviously, he was the defensive backs coach, pass game coordinator. And then this past year, he was actually promoted to assistant head coach along with defensive passing game coordinator. So one of those dudes, he's an underdog, overachiever. Boy, oh boy, you'd love to have him on the staff. Mike Witt with the super chat. Thank you, Mike. Says Jim Leonard coaching Micah would be amazing. Look what he did with way less talented players at Wisconsin. Even if the Broncos win, can we still interview him? I have heard everybody talk circles around this topic, Mike. I still do not have an answer. We had somebody yesterday say they've already interviewed him. The Dallas Cowboys already interviewed Jim Leonard. I'm going, I don't think that's true. But hell, what do I know? I don't know what's going on at this point, to be honest with you. The way I understand the rules is the week in between the Super Bowl that the team can grant permission for them to interview. right? And that would be a phone interview, most likely a virtual interview, if you will. And then once the team is eliminated, it would be an in-person interview. I've also heard other people say you can do in-person interviews during that week. I don't know. Do your own research. I can't find anything in the rule book that says strictly here are the rules. So I think it's more of a permission granted type thing from the current team. So appreciate the super chat there, Mike. I'm curious to know, you guys are watching this back later in the comments. Let us know, how do you feel about the Jim Leonhard update? Because it seems like every time we hear something on Jim Leonhard, it's one step closer to this might actually happen, right? As Coach Lynn says here, if hired, I wonder who he would add to his staff. Who would he pull away from the current staff too, right, Coach? How many are Jeff Hafley going to poach? They're actually waiting for the current defensive coordinator in Miami, who I think they want to hold on to. He might potentially get a job somewhere as well. I think it's Anthony Weaver, if I remember correctly. So that trickle-down effect is going to come into play as well. But let us know in the comments if you're watching this back later. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future live streams. And now